welcome to Mapping the College Audition, a podcast where we explore the landscape of the college theater world and try to demystify this daunting audition process. I'm your host, Charlie Murphy, director of MTCA, Musical Theater College Auditions, and today we have a silly and fun show lined up for you. Joel Wagner is a dear friend of mine from when I first moved to New York City and a longtime amazing MTCA vocal tech coach who used to work with us before he moved on to teaching at Pace, and from whom I used to take some voice lessons. Joel and I did like an exchange of like, I would give him like dialect and acting classes, and he would give me voice lessons. I think I still owe him like a dialect class, but we'll see if he collects.
You guys are bartering.
Oh, you got to. When you're
Bartering for
young,
goods.
move into the city, you
Yeah.
got to barter a little bit for sure. You got to make it happen. Today on the show with Joel, we get into what it is to come back to a show after COVID, 2 years after, to sort of come right back into the same costumes. We talk about the game show aspect of NYU grad school and how he really thrived getting to use all of his skills there. We talk about Joel not viewing himself as an actor and kind of working through imposter syndrome. We talk about what it is to be a yes person and really now trying to kind of not just say yes to the next project, but actually manifest the different multi-hyphens that Joel has that he really wants to put out into the world. We talk about Joel's journey to winning $100,000 Pyramid, which happened a couple years ago. And we talk a bit about the traps of social media. But Meghan, before we get into the episode with Joel, spring has sprung. We've just announced our faculty masterclass teachers. It's an exciting time to be an MTCA student.
It is an exciting time. I did it once upon a time, and I greatly enjoyed the experience.
Many moons ago.
Many, many moons ago. Not so many moons.
Not so many.
But many moons. But it was a great experience, and it has developed and evolved throughout the years. And this year we have a spring masterclass too. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what's the benefits of doing spring versus summer?
It's so true, Meghan. They're really two different experiences that are reaching toward the same thing. I'll start with our in-person experience, which is 12 teachers. That's at the top of August, the 2nd through 7th, with lots of also additional fun activities. Like we're all going to go see a Broadway show. We have some Q&As with some amazing guests, including a former friend of the pod who I happen to live with. I've heard a rumor that she may be doing a Q&A with us. But so like a really fun week during the summer. And spring is exactly half of that. It's the same program, but it's 6 teachers and all online, where the summer is all in person, the spring is all online. We're really trying to stay conscious of having training available online for people who aren't able to make it in person, whether it's an East Coast activity or a West Coast activity that we have in person. We've really learned about the benefit of what works with online training the past 2 years. And while it may not be as fun, and let's face it, it's often not as fun as in-person acting and singing and dancing, it can be a really effective way to meet 6 faculty members from incredible training programs. And it is going to be part of, as we talk about on all these episodes, it's going to be part of your auditioning process, whether it's in college or just moving on in the world as an auditioning professional actor. So it's worth figuring out how to learn online as well. So 2 amazing programs, all different teachers across the programs that you've seen. All 18 of those teachers just got announced. And of course, you've all heard about our junior weekend experience, which is happening this weekend, helping prep for all of this.
So students could do both. You could get the online, you can get the live experience. There's multiple benefits of going to both, and your auditions probably will be both. Hopefully the world will be better, but you never know in this changing landscape.
We want you so prepared that you could be doing simultaneous auditioning for one school on the computer, one school in person, all at the same time, answering questions, multitasking. That's what we train you to do here at MTCA.
It'd just be like a multiple cam audition rather than like TV show. It would just be an audition.
But speaking of multicam, why don't we get to our multi-hyphenate artist, Joel Wagner, and this fun interview? Well, we are so honored to have Joel Wagner on the pod. I like that Joel laughed as soon as I said honored about it. Joel is another one of our true multi-hyphenate, multi-hat wearing artists. He's an actor, writer, composer, music director, musician, and game show winner. He has a BA from the University of Northern Iowa, an MFA in musical theater writing from NYU. He's been on Broadway in shows like School of Rock with our fearless director, Leo Ash Evans, Be More Chill. He's also a founding member of the Musical Theater Factory alongside friend of the pod, Shakina Nafak, a music director and vocal arranger Ranger, including shows like Broadway Bounty Hunter and many productions at Pace University, where he served as director of music. He is also the winner of season 3's premiere of ABC's $100,000 Pyramid, which will come up later in the show. Got to do that. Joel, what's up, man? How you doing?
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad to see you. I got to tell you, I don't remember the last time I saw you because of like the 2 years of the pandemic.
Because of
And
2 years of pandemic. I think it would have been Leo's birthday party, and you were charming the pants off of Elizabeth at the time. She was like, "Who? Joel is so funny. He's so great." I was like, "I know, I know."
oh my goodness. I remember her pants staying on, which is good.
I don't remember it that way, Joel. I do not remember it that
That's
way.
why you have a baby.
That's why
And
we
I
got a
don't.
baby.
But you're in a nursery. That's great, unless that's your bedroom. But I love it. Look how beautiful
Yeah,
that
what a
is.
life.
I'm in a little hotel.
Yes, you're right now at Oslo Rep, right? This is where you're calling in from.
Yes, I'm at Oslo Rep in Sarasota. 2 years ago, we were putting up a world premiere of this new show called Knoxville by amazing writers Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens, and um, uh, we got cut off right in the middle of it, and they decided to put it up 2 years later. And I got to tell you, it is surreal and totally healing, because I was really hoping it would be healing, because
Mm-hmm.
I like anybody else in the industry have like really struggled the last 2 years finding purpose in it, finding a point in it, because like the essentiality of theater was questioned largely,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was pivoting, and I just didn't know, like, not only did I feel purposeless, I was also like, well, what's the point of theater? What are we even doing it for? But being
Mm-hmm.
back in rehearsal and having a schedule and having people around me, and you know telling a story and just convincing yourself that that matters, it eventually gets back in your bones. And I'm just so profoundly grateful for that. But it is weird because, they bring us back, and there are costumes with their names in them, and there
Uh-huh.
are props they've just been sitting there, just sitting there in the same spots. Thank God my costumes still fit. Otherwise, whatever. But you know what I mean?
That's a
But
Herculean effort itself, just the costume fitting after 2 years.
oh, don't get me started.
I do think it's really interesting. We talk about this a lot with the pandemic of like going back to something from before, because I think
hmm
we all had that desire for the snap back of the business. Oh my God, it's all back. It's everything we wanted, that we didn't lose anything from it, but we're all like different people emerging from it. So to step back into costumes and parts that you played 2 years ago now as a new person has got to be so weird.
It's so weird. One thing that we did on the first day, which was amazing, was Oslo has this woman named Dewanda, and she's an affinity space holder. So basically
Mm-hmm.
what she did is just, we had a big Zoom meeting the first day because we had to COVID test. And everybody in the cast and creative team had a moment to say where they've been, what they've been doing, what they want to get out of the
Mm-hmm.
process, where they are as a person. And everyone was brave enough to be really vulnerable. And some of us were like, I don't really know if I I don't really know if I like theater anymore, or I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
if this is for me. It's been a real struggle. Or some people were like, I lost someone really recently and this is really hard. Or some people were like, I'm actually really, really ready. I've been missing this and blah, blah, blah. So everybody was able to come at it with total honesty, which I thought was like so great, which also opened the doors for us to have side conversations as people and cut the small talk. We just went
Mm-hmm.
straight to like, here was what I dealt with in my mental health journey, and here's where I went, and I got a house, and I didn't do this, and blah blah blah. So it was like, it's just been really profound, and we're all able to come at it just as we are,
Mm-hmm.
like as our ambivalent sort of like, I'm not sure who I am or if I know how to act anymore. So let's just
Mm-hmm.
try it. So that's been actually really, really, really special. But we were just informed yesterday that they're going to produce a original cast album,
Hell
which is like
yes.
out of control, insane for me to imagine. Like, I first of all, that it's happening after a regional theater world
Mm-hmm.
premiere. That's like, who does that anymore? But also at the same time, I'm like, you know what? If Flaherty and Aaron's are making that happen, and they're people who support them, if that's the new precedent,
Mm.
like, what if that were a new thing? What if that were a thing? You could actually premiere a new musical out of town and then get a
Mm-hmm.
cast album out of it. Like, so Broadway isn't the sort of nucleus of it anymore.
I love it. But before we get too deep into the career, because I love where we're going, and we'll spend a lot of the second half talking about the career, I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey to this wonderful success that you have had, especially in terms of kind of your educational journey. And if I can take you back to like 16, 17-year-old Joel, maybe
Yeah.
first starting to look at colleges, I'd love to even hear, like, what were you looking for in a school? What were your goals as you began to approach the process? Maybe not knowing quite as much as you know now about it. Like, what were you thinking about it in terms of what you were hoping to get out of school?
It's so weird and interesting for me to look back at myself in high school, for many reasons. But as far as the college search goes, because I grew up in medium town Iowa, um, and
That's not a real town, right? You're just saying
well,
medium-sized
yes,
town.
instead of saying small town, I said medium town because
Ah, it's
it's
just
not
because in
urban
the middle of the country,
Iowa.
sometimes medium town would be believable as a town. I would have believed it if you
Exactly.
said that's where
Welcome
you
to Medium Town, Normalville, starring pleasant
Smallville?
things. Yes. So, the town was called Waterloo, Cedar Falls. There's two cities, and one of them had a university. But when I was looking to for colleges to go to, my first my first criteria was anywhere but Iowa. I was like, nope, I'm definitely not going to UNI because my dad worked there and I grew up there. I grew up like taking dance lessons and violin and like, just you just drive by it because you grow up there. I was like, absolutely not. I'm meant for bigger things. Blah, 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 blah. But what happened was no one in my town knew a thing about how to prepare someone for musical theater auditions. It was a really opera heavy school, and the community theater people just did community theater. And I didn't know anybody who left town to do what I did. Um, so I was like, okay, I'm going to find some applications to like the classic musical theater schools at the time, which were like Michigan, UCLA, Carnegie Mellon, Cincinnati Conservatory, BOCO, and I just literally printed them off. Um, and then I also just for fun printed off University of Northern Colorado because I was like, well, I heard they had a program, and I was like, just get me out of Iowa. Um, so what happened was I printed them off, and then I started looking through the audition process and where I had to go to audition, and my parents and I were completely lost. Like I had no power. I had no knowledge of what to do. I was like, where do we go?
Mhm.
Are we supposed to drive to Boston? Am I supposed to learn a song? Like, do we just show up at the door and say, "Hi, I'm gay, let me in," like I do with every other thing I do in the world, which has worked. I'm just joking. And so I had a real quiet moment with myself, and I was like, what is the one constant for me that I would be unwilling to be um not not the best at, but what's the one skill set that matters the most to me? And I was like, that's music. I was like,
Mhm.
I've always had music at the forefront. I've always been composing. I've always been playing piano, violin, guitar, singing. I've always done that. I've always written. And I'm like, that is the thing that if I don't know the most about, I'll be disappointed.
Mhm.
Acting for me, I was like, I'm not passionate about acting. Singing, I can learn, but I was like, I gotta know music, music, music. And ironically, the best music school I knew of was University of Northern Iowa, which
Mhm.
was where I grew up. It had an
Mhm.
incredible jazz program, an awesome vocal department, great theater department, incredible orchestra with this amazing conductor, and the Waterloo Cedar Falls Symphony was out of there. And it was a big 13,000 state school. So like 13,000, the number of students was about 13,000. And I grew up going there, but I'd never been to college there.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I decided I was like, I'm just gonna do a semester while I figure out how to audition for these other musical theater programs. I was like, I'm just gonna go, and that way, like, I can just ease out of my parents or whatever. I stayed at University of Northern Iowa, which was where I grew up. Um, I stayed there for 5 years.
Mm.
I did a victory lap because I loved it so much. I was able to not only do everything I wanted to do and more, but I was also able to spend the last years of my grandparents' life near
Mm.
them. I was also able to have my parents' support when I needed it. Um, and I lived away from home the whole time. And in that 5 years, I saw my dad on campus maybe twice.
Mhm.
And once was on purpose because he had to help me move uh, a cheap love seat up 4 flights of stairs. And I made the best friends of my life at that
Mm.
program. And I so it's really weird for me to look back at that time because I was so hungry to get out. but it was a life-changing experience. I do think that if I have one regret, it was that because it was in my hometown, I had a reputation of being sort of
Mm,
like a wunderkind a little bit in my hometown. So when I went to college, I didn't really allow myself to fully fail. Like I didn't allow myself to
mhm,
be anonymous and just fall back and do nothing and or not do nothing, but fall back and be willing to let my voice crack and willing to like be bad at
mhm,
stuff. I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I had to keep it up. So I was a
mhm,
little resistant to some education and some learning that would have made me um, be bad, which kept
mhm,
me from getting better. So I had some colleagues and friends of mine who came in, being like, say to mommy, and I would come and be like, sit, or I'd be singing my version. But slowly and surely, because they knew very little,
mhm,
because they were coming from zero and learning what they were taught, before you knew it, all of a sudden I was like, wait, how are they hitting that note? How are they getting that?
mhm,
How are they hitting that? Like, how are they singing that consistently? How come they won that thing and I didn't? Like, I was suddenly like, wait a second, maybe I need to start over and erase what I know. So I really think that if I were to go back, I would have found a place where I could have really been vulnerable, started over, had the support and the confidence from others and teachers and professors that I would be okay. Because I do know now, even as an adult, I struggle with, man, I wish I had learned to do this earlier
uh-huh,
because instead I was trying to be the star kid. Um, and all I needed was like a year of just being bad.
mm. Yeah, it comes up a lot, the idea of like it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So that like the more that if you're ahead, you're way ahead in this one area. It's like it's great, but people will catch up if you're not continuing to work, continue to move in that place. If you're like, I'm just going to rest on my laurels there, it's like people will catch you up in
Yeah.
this business and certainly in the education. You studied vocal performance and violin, right?
Well, yeah. So here's the deal. Ready? I'm chewing something, by the way. This is how casual I am.
It's
2022. I'm
great.
like, I'm
Really,
eating on a
really.
podcast. ASMR for all you friends out there. Yummy, yummy. There's a little agave nectar in it if you want to have like smell-o-vision. Okay, so the uh the reason I'm saying this, or the reason I'm stopping to talk about this, is I did every possible thing that I could do in college, including every extracurricular moment. So I was concertmaster of the orchestra. I was section leader of uh, a chamber singing group and a jazz choir group. And I was in a concert chorale. I played piano for vocal studios and recitals and took piano lessons. Um, I was Sweeney Todd in a gigantic production that was done in partnership with the School of Music and Theater production. I was Johnny Skiki in an opera. I was in a chorus line. I played Al DeLuca. I mean, this happened.
Hmm.
And then I was also a conductor, so I would conduct things and I wrote things. I wrote a fanfare for the orchestra, and like it just so I just went nonstop all the time. Um, but the problem with that at a liberal arts school is that you have to take liberal arts. So I was shoving so many things into my schedule that I couldn't get my liberal arts core in enough time.
Hmm.
And so here I was 23 years old or 23 years old, um, my fifth year of college in a math for decision making class with 18-year-olds, desperately trying to copy off the girl next to me and, exchange somehow. I don't know what I tried to barter with her, just like association with a senior. I don't know. It was awful, but I had to push through that. Um,
And
I
having
remember
seen
when
your pay logs, Joel, I know for sure you did not pass that math class. I'm just
no,
going to
you
say,
did
having
not. Oh my
seen.
God. Pay logs back in, last time I gave you a pay log was maybe 10 years ago. I feel like,
Mhm.
oh
It's
Lord.
been a while.
You've got a different thing now, right? Something knack or I don't know. Um, but yes, thanks for your vote of confidence. I'm much better at music math.
Uh-huh, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
but what happened was I ran up to a point where I'm like, I can't stay in college anymore
Mhm,
because A, I'm going to graduate school because I decided to apply, and B, it's time to leave the nest. So what I basically did is I just looked at all my Halloween candy that was laid out on the on the counter, and I was like, "What can I piece together?" It was honestly like
What's a major?
chopped. It was
Uh-huh.
like chopped. It was like open a basket. It's like you get a rabbit liver,
Oh.
a Jello salad, the head of a beetle, and you have to like make a meal out of it. And I was like, okay, well, I have enough here to maybe piece together a vocal performance or a vocal degree, a vocal major and a violin major, but I have to do a recital for both. So I
Mm,
just like threw together basically a recital in voice and violin, and that allowed me to have a BA in both those things. But
mm.
ultimately, when I describe my college experience, I say that I should have just gotten a degree of participation.
Just get a participation trophy. Well,
Honestly,
what do you
yes.
imagine? Like, I know, of course, you had such a different education than those ones you first envisioned, but how do you imagine it would have been different if you'd gotten that BFA from a CCM or a BOCO or, that kind of more traditional musical theater training, given that you have many different hats, but at least one of them now is a Broadway actor?
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I haven't really thought about how my life would have been different. I think that I would have been I think that I think I would have met more people like me sooner.
Hmm.
I think I would have met just more gay men sooner, but I also would have met more people like me sooner. And and by that I mean people who have the same interests as me,
Hmm.
and the people who like to sing like I do unapologetically and
Hmm.
not be ashamed of it, because there's a lot of shame in musical theater singing in an opera program.
Hmm.
So that I think would have really done wonders for me to feel seen and feel like, oh my God, like not only am I not alone, but it's so cool to be here. Like I would have loved to have gone back and felt like I found my people earlier and that I wasn't this stick out, stand out, who is this person guy. I had a lot of friends, totally, but I was not like anybody else.
Hmm.
Like I
Hmm.
just wasn't. It took me till New York to sort of meet people that were like me.
I feel like,
Um,
yeah, I remember that, and especially when we first met. Of course, you had a great friend group and you had a community, but it felt there was still a searching and a putting your tentacles into the community in a way that I think you didn't graduate with 12 other people who moved to the city with you in the same way. That there was that different, like, oh, I'm still rooting myself in.
right. And I'm in a way different place now than I was when I moved to the city, career wise, like in my
Yeah.
personhood. Um, you know, in a way, the person I am now is the person I've been trying to build since high school,
Mm,
because I had delays and fear and shame in the way, but I also had logistics and just not knowing. And so I've had to give myself a lot of compassion. I've had to show myself a lot of compassion
mm-hmm.
and patience, um, just to just to let myself just because I feel sometimes like it's taken me too long to get to this place.
Mm.
But that's just me comparing myself to other people's journeys, and my journey has its own sort of spectacular arc. So
Hell yeah, it does.
yeah, I mean, we all
We
have
had
that sort
Dakin
of
Matthews
thing.
on the pod who made a Broadway debut in his 60s. So, come on. You crushed
Right, right,
him.
right.
You know?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, that's something I didn't even after a while, that's something I didn't even expect,
Hmm.
or didn't even think about anymore, um, because I was so entrenched in a different life. So if I had a BFA in musical theater or went to musical theater school, I imagine I would have a very different trajectory,
Hmm.
um, because I'd be more hungry for the stage, or
Hmm.
hungry for writing musical theater, and I wouldn't have taken the music directing and teaching route that I took, and the vocal coaching route that I took
Hmm.
for almost 8 years.
Hmm.
But it was also a part of me. I really loved teaching, and I loved music directing because I was good at it. But I also um, I felt purposeful, and I felt like I could make it fun and I could be creative with it. It just so happens that recently I've been deciding to pull away from it a little bit more, because it isn't as creative for me as it used
Hmm.
to be. It used to be really fun for me to put things together and teach, and now I'm a little bit more like, uh I want to spend any time that I have, I want to spend either working on my own work, and realizing that, or just picking things that are let me be my fullest self, and less of a
Hmm.
facilitator of other people's works, if that
Makes
makes
total sense.
sense.
And we'll get a lot into the hats in our second half of the interview. But
Yes, hats.
before I move on, I just want to talk a bit about NYU, the MFA. So, how did that timing work in terms of when you latched on for that part of things?
So I started my 5th year of my 5th year of college, my victory lap, which was basically also a like, oh my God, I need a year to figure out what I'm going to do next because I didn't think this through. Just like I did in high school. I was like, I didn't think this through. So I had 2 professors that I loved. One was my director for Sweeney Todd, and the other was the orchestra conductor. And we are both dear friends still. I just produced a demo of their new musical. But they said, there's this program at NYU. It's for musical theater writing, and we think you should apply. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I recall my mom showing me that program in high school. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could do this right away, but I can't because I have to go to college first. So I literally forgot about it for 5 years. And they're like, we think you should apply. And I was like, I think you're right. And I was terrified. But I was like, I have to do this because I think that is the thing. And it was so niche, but so up my alley because I was like, I know I've been wanting to write. I wrote my first musical when I was in 3rd grade. Like, I've just always been like, I've got to do this. So I worked up the courage to do the application, and I wrote music for it. And I literally put everything I'd ever written into this envelope, like, and stuff I'd written specifically for it. In fact, one of the songs I still play at concerts was a piece I wrote for the application. And I sent it in. I had some of my friends record the stuff. I put it on a CD. I remember like going to Copyworks and getting it spiral bound. It was the hardest I'd ever worked on an application. It truly was.
There's
It was
a lot more
difficult
than just like, hello, I'm gay, let me in. You need a lot more.
Exactly. It's a way more than that because gay is a given when you're applying for musical theater writing school.
Yeah.
So I put that. It was a really hard application to put together, but I put it together somehow. And it took a long time, but I sent it in and I was like, here literally goes nothing. I mean, like, these are songs that no one had ever heard. You know, I don't think my parents heard them. Like, it was wild. I just sent them all in. And I somehow got picked for the applicant weekend, which was in March of 2008. And so my parents flew me out there, or we flew out, and I wore like a full suit to my interview. But when I showed up, I was so shocked that like people were just like not wearing suits. They were just like straight up like just wearing hoodies and regular ass people's shit. But they were wearing just regular things. I was like, oh, I'm way too dressed up for this. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I'm dressed for how much it matters to me. And I think that's an important thing to take with you.
And let's just be clear, Joel is right now dressed in pajamas. So I'm just taking the note.
I am not in pajamas. I'm wearing a vest. I'm wearing a vest.
What's on the bottom? What's on the bottom?
The bottom are amazing gauze pants from this store called Oh My Gauze in Lido Beach, Sarasota. And they are flowy, cool women's pants. And they are extraordinary. And they look a little bit like Aladdin pants. They are
well, then I take
pajamas.
it then you think we're extraordinary.
Yes.
You dress for how much you care.
Yes, absolutely. And for rehearsal. But so I did the program. I did the applicant weekend. It was very intense. It was like 3 days. They pair you up with a random person from another part of the country. I had this girl from London, and we had to write a scene in a song over the weekend somehow in New York City, finding a piano. And then we came back and performed it, and then they just sent us off. And we found out, I think, oh gosh, maybe like a month or so later, I found out that I got in. And my parents and I were just like, well, here goes nothing. And I got in touch with some of the people from the applicant weekend who also got in, and we found an apartment together, and my parents drove me out in a van for 2 days. And the rest is sort of history. The program was 2 years long. And the first year was a lot of tutorials, labs, meaning like you go in and you do like, you practice writing one song, a lot of assignments, just like learning the craft of it. And the whole second year, you're paired with a person. If you're a composer, you're paired with a lyricist, book writer, and you write a full-length 90-minute musical over the span of the entire year. And we had great professors. We had Bill Finn, Michael John LaCusa. We had a lot of guests like Winnie Holzman, Elton John came and talked to us. You know, we had a lot of George C. Wolfe came and spoke with us. Like, we had a lot of incredible people there, and I made a lot of great connections. My most important one was probably Bill Finn. He had a really intense masterclass lyric writing, and it was honestly a reality show. Like, he was just like, this sucks or he was like, this is good. Basically, everyone sat around a table and they presented their lyric that they had written based on the assignment that he'd given. And we all read it aloud, and if he liked it, he'd go, who wants to set it? And us composers would be sitting in the dugout around the table, and one of us would just raise our hand,
Hmm.
and he would hand us the lyric, and we would run downstairs to the basement and set it to music, and then by the end of class come up and perform it for the group. And if he liked it, he put it on one of his concerts. So it
Oh
was
my
this
gosh.
really wild game show like thing. It really was. And I learned to be a confident songwriter because of how little time I had to get in my own way.
Huh.
And so I would have to go downstairs, write it out, and then I loved to perform. So I came up and I was like, I just would end class with just performing what I just written. And I was like this really weird rush of like unbelievable creativity and adrenaline, and it was just wild. But so I
Hmm.
wrote enough stuff in that class that he didn't hate, and we built a relationship over time, which led me to my relationship with Barrington Stage Company and some of the musicals I'd written
Hmm.
there. But that's a whole other thing. But the graduate program was profound for me. It was very expensive, and some other people didn't get much out of it, and a lot of people haven't followed the career because
Hmm.
it's a very difficult career.
Hmm.
Um, and it's very difficult, as you know. Um, and some people are like, oh, I don't know why I even went there. So many people at BMI didn't, or just go for free, and now their work's getting produced. But for me, it is the thing that got me to New York. It is the
Hmm.
thing that got me noticed as a composer to people who could move me forward. And it taught me that I was a composer, because but when I went there, I had like 5 songs to my name, and now I have hundreds and hundreds and 2 full-length
Hmm.
musicals and all this stuff because I just learned. So it was really a magical thing for me. And also, while I was there, these other composers that were working on things would have me sing their stuff. So I'd be performing and playing violin and playing piano. And so I was just a real perfect use of all the music skills that I had
Hmm.
built up. So it was like a perfect synthesis. And then there, one of the composers who'd been in the program a couple years prior, was working on a new musical called Southern Comfort. And she heard that I sang and played violin. She's like, hey, I'm doing a reading of this late night this Thursday. Can you just come and sight read and play a little violin? And that was in 2009, my second
Hmm.
year of grad school. And then 2 years later, 2011, there was a full production at Cap 21, and she asked me to be in it. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
my God, sure. And then in 2013, that same production of Southern Comfort was done at Barrington Stage Company. And then in 2016, it was done at the Public Theater, and I was in every one of those things. So
Unbelievable.
that's another one of those things where you just stay with it for long enough, and it's crazy. And that's sort of what's happened with Knoxville, why I'm here right now. I was a Dramatist Guild fellow in 2012 because
Hmm.
of my experience at NYU. And in 2012, it was Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Aaron's last year running the Dramatist Guild Fellowship program.
Hmm.
And they heard me play all the things and sing all the things. And then somehow in 2018, they heard that I was in School of Rock. And Stephen Flaherty sends me an email. He goes, hey, we're working on a new show and we think you'd be right for it. Will you send in a tape? So over an agent's head. It's
Hmm.
so weird how life works out that way. Like, I'm really having to remember that, especially after 2 years of like darkness.
Well,
Um,
tell me a little bit about that before we jump to the Stephen Flaherty. Just the acting of it all. Certainly, when first met you, you didn't talk about yourself like an actor, right? You talked about yourself like I have
no,
all these skills and I teach voice and I'm a great vocalist. We knew you could sing always, and and you were going to go composer and writer, but you didn't lead with I'm a performer. But then only a couple years later, there you are on Broadway. So how does that happen in terms of the transition for you?
I still oddly don't call myself an actor. I don't consider myself an actor, even though
Hmm.
I know I am. And I'm waiting for the moment for someone who I trust to be like, "You're an actor." The
Joel,
reason I
this is that
say that
moment. You're an actor.
the reason I say that I'm not an actor is I feel imposter syndrome or fraud syndrome. I feel like I haven't put the work in like most other people have. I haven't like gotten the degree. I haven't studied all the classics. I haven't done Shakespeare. I haven't like been
Hmm.
in a play except for like a kid's play. And I like to entertain. I love to just be myself. Clearly, I've been talking this entire time with no problem. Oopsie daisy. Sorry if you're bored. Skip over it. But I enjoy that. And I enjoy comedic acting, which is also acting, I guess. So I enjoy sort of big stuff like that. It's the dramatic acting that I think I struggle to tap into as a performer, because I would rather sing it, because I can really
Hmm.
feel safe to release it there. So I guess I am an actor. I will say that I am an actor, but I have hesitancy around dramatic acting. Even though I do it, I
Sure.
still feel fraudulent about it a little bit. But
Well, I
so
can say as someone who's seen you perform, you're a fantastic actor, and
thank
of
you.
course, yeah, if you're comfortable acting while singing, but it's like that's like how I would feel. I'm like I'm comfortable with Shakespeare, but like you put a sheet of music in my hand, I'd be like, okay, we'll see what happens here. Like, great. So
Yeah, I
you're
guess you're
not saying you're
right.
a flawless actor, but you're
No,
very good at acting.
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you put a Shakespeare monologue in front of me, I would feel so naked. But if you put sheet music in front of me, I would be like, all right, move
Mm.
over, you know? So
Full
it
on
is
gauze
interesting.
pants. You're ready to go.
Gods, oh my gods. Yes. So I'm actually working through some of that imposter syndrome right now in this production, and I was very open with Frank,
Mm.
especially after 2 years. I was like, Frank Galati, the director, who's a wizard, and a legend. I was like, listen, I'm not quite sure how to do this. I'm not quite sure how to synthesize everything, because I think what happens for me is it's easy for me to be honest. It's easy for me to be myself. What's hard for me to do is funnel my honesty uh through uh, like a character description. So for instance, the particular character I'm playing in this show is a functional alcoholic who's sort of abusive, emotionally abusive to his wife in 1915 Tennessee, and
Hmm.
he's the sort of lesser loved son of his brother, um Jay. And so there's a lot of things that I have to that are put on me that I necessarily don't have to play. And that's what I've been trying to figure out how to synthesize. It's like, okay, I'm not going
Hmm.
to play drunk because I'm functional, which means I am already operating. So I don't have to
Yeah, you
stumble
seem
or
plenty
anything. I
drunk right
just
now. Yeah.
exactly. But you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like there's things like that, that like I sometimes I feel like I'm carrying all of these assignments. Okay,
Hmm.
it's 1915, so you can't like pop your
Hmm.
hip, and it's da da da, so you can't do this, and it's Southern, so keep the accent going, but also you're abusive, so don't use your arms too much because you're
Hmm.
hurt. And sometimes I have a hard time just sort of wearing the clothes, just like dropping it
Hmm.
all and wearing the clothes and just letting the stillness of my body tell the story. So that's what I'm really working on, is trying to stop intellectualizing everything so
I
much.
love that. That's something we
And
talk
you're
about a
right.
lot. It's like trust your homework, right? It's like that you've done all the homework, but now don't show me the homework. If you're showing me, I did this and I did this, and here's all the stuff from Chopped that I've put together, and here's what the
Yeah.
ingredients I'm making. Whereas opposed to it's like just do the thing, right? That if you've done the work, hopefully it'll be there.
Right, and sometimes I doubt that I've done the work, or I doubt that I knew how to do the work, and I think that is where I
Uh huh.
when I come into, am I an actor or not?
Uh huh. And you feel the sheen of performance has to come on because you go, I don't know if I trust the work enough that it'll show
Right.
through, but I know my
Right,
tricks. I'll go back to
and
my
I know
tricks
my
if I need to.
tricks, and I know I'm an entertainer, so I know I can make people laugh, I know I can entertain, I know I can make choices, I know I can make actor appropriate choices. I think, but deep down, I'm sort of like, I don't think I'm doing this right,
Hmm.
like, I don't think I did the homework, I didn't read the book, you know what I mean? So, I'm working on that a little bit, and Frank is the most
I
amazing person to help with that.
Not to diagnose you with even more diseases, but I do think that that is a specific phobia that I sometimes see in people who did not go to acting school, that they
Mhm,
feel like there must be some secret that I don't know. When I want to
mhm.
be like, no, acting is acting is acting. Like if you're doing the acting, if you're doing the work, whether you've been in class or however you figured out how to figure this thing out, it counts. But sometimes people feel like it doesn't count if I don't have that degree with the titles on it. If I don't see BFA or if I don't see I studied this 4 years of acting under this certain teacher, then people go, well, I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I can trust it in the same way, even though it's sometimes just as good work as somebody else who has that degree.
Yeah, or somebody who just got, like, a film and TV, like, career from just
Correct.
being a truck driver that someone liked, you know? I and just had a decent personality and just, like, had a affinity
Totally.
for it. Yeah, it's interesting, and what's funny too is, like, especially for the listeners, this these messages that I'm receiving from my inner self about acting, and they just don't go away unless you work at them,
Hmm.
and be kind to yourself. And this is after two Broadway shows that came as a surprise, right?
Hmm.
And you know. and a show I'm literally originating a role in right now, and I still have
Mm-hmm.
those feelings, and so do other people involved. So it's a constant journey for me, I think, figuring out that balance of wanting to continue to be curious and also feel worthy,
Mm-hmm. So true. I want to cue to a break here in a second, but you promised me a full circle moment. Something happened at UNI that you were going to then full circle. It's come back this year. Give me that tying of the bow.
Oh, really great. So remember those musical theater, um uh there's sort of twofold, those musical theater speech contest uh little pieces that I made. Well, the second year that I, I wrote, they're supposed to be 10 minutes long, and you can have five people, five chairs, and a table, and you have to make a backing track. So I arranged the backing track. The first year we did Fame and we won. The second year we did Ragtime, and the third year we did The Wiz. Now,
Mm,
the second year we did Ragtime, and here I am, however many years later, in the room with Flaherty and Aarons and
mm,
Frank Galati, the creative team of Ragtime, in an original musical, about to do a original cast album. So my mind is completely blown, and Stephen Flaherty's music is much with all of us, a part of not only our DNA but like America's DNA. So
mm-hmm,
much of that musical theater canon is just like unstoppable. But the other thing I was going to say about it was, this year, February, like as in last month, um, the Iowa High School Speech Association had me return as
mm,
a
mm,
all-state critic. So I got to actually go and critique all of the musical theater categories, or
mm,
all of the musical theater category of the high school entries for the All-State Festival, and award the banner to a school, which is,
mm,
that's the full circle thing. And it was absolutely life-changing for me, because not only was I able to really, after 2 years of not performing at all, lift these kids up, make them feel like they were amazing, because they were, and inspire them to move forward, but also brought the life back into me. And then to stand at the very podium on the same stage, and it hasn't been that long, it's been like 20 some years, but so there are still teachers there who are the same, and
mm-hmm,
the same guy runs it. But to stand on the podium and to feel the air stop, and I got a huge, massive standing ovation from these kids, because they're just incredible. I tell you, Iowa kids, don't listen to Iowa politicians. Iowa kids are incredible, and Iowa theater kids are incredible, and they're brave, and um, they're ferocious in the best way, and they care. Anyway, I got to give the award to a school that
mm,
did an amazing version of Come From Away. But
mm,
to stand at the podium and know, there I was, 37 years old, um, with a pierced ear and a swish in my hip, my fully gay, proud adult self, who had been in two
mm-hmm,
Broadway shows and was on his way to something else, who had just suffered a real mental health crisis because of all of this, standing there in my fullness, looking out at the audience, knowing that I was out there,
mm,
closeted, looking for somebody to tell me that I could do it, looking for somebody to tell me that I had a shot. And
mm-hmm,
that's what it was for me. When I got the banners, I thought, somebody thinks I can do this. I can
mm.
be a composer, or I can be a performer. I can do this. So the full circle moment in that was like pretty life changing. And honestly, life doesn't give you many of those. And so I'm really, I hold that one dear to my heart, close to my heart.
Mm. I love it. We will take a short break, and on the back end, we're going to talk a little bit more about these many hats that Joel wears. We'll get a little of his career, and we will play a game for sure.
My disease hats. They're not diseases, but they're syndromes. Not syndromes, but I got stuff going on. We all do.
Okay, we are back with Joel Waggoner, and we were in the middle of the break talking about some of the things that I had to shush him so that we could get into some of these for real on the episode. We're going to talk about some social media. We're going to talk about some of the many hats that Joel wears. I'd love to start off with just a little rapid fire wise, like with all these different hats, and maybe you can go through some of them. I hit some of them kind of jokingly in the intro there, but many different things that you play. You write in all kinds of different forums. So both like you're a composer, but then also I can tell you comedic writer as well. So there's a lot of different things in that world. Certainly as an actor, is this something that you put like a conscious effort into? Like, do you have to juggle keeping up all these skills of like, how's my violin? How's my piano? I haven't done that in a while. Like, how's my vocal technique teaching? Like, you have so many of those hats. How do you keep all of them in the
The
closet?
only way I keep them in the air is by having projects. I don't pick my violin up if I don't have a reason to. I don't sing
Uh-huh.
if I don't have a reason to. I sing at home, I'll write songs and stuff, but projects only. I wish that I were the kind of person who just had a studio and just made stuff and threw it out, like had my
Hmm.
own little musical bakery. But unfortunately, if I don't have anything on the schedule, then there's nothing on the schedule. Like I can't even put down like, Joel, go grocery shopping. I'll find a way not to. But if someone's like, meet so and so at the grocery store for a special meeting, I'll go to the grocery store. So that's something I've been learning to figure out.
Uh-huh.
So this show right now, I haven't picked my violin up in a while. So I have to really, really practice while I'm
Uh-huh.
here. But it ultimately comes back. You know what I mean? It doesn't go so far
Yeah.
away that I have to like relearn. But
Uh-huh.
I do definitely need to brush it up while I'm in the process of something new. And usually the rehearsal process helps clear out some of the cobwebs.
What about like just as an artist, as you look at kind of seasons of your life, are you consciously planning out, this feels like it's going to be a moment of writing and music directing, or this feels like it's going to be more of an actor moment for me? Or is it all just whatever the universe gives you? If no one tells you to meet you at the grocery store, it's not going to happen? Or is there some conscientious saying, for these 6 months, I really want to manifest some of these hats that I'm wearing?
So right now in my life, I am starting to explore this idea of manifesting what I want. Up until now, it has been truly research and whatever fate has thrown at me. I think I've always been a yes person for a long
Hmm.
time. And those are and I would take experiences and opportunities that were given to me as signs that that's where I should go and move to. I never really had a conscientious or a conscious, excuse me, effort toward any particular thing. I think that I felt a shift from music directing into performing because that was very clear that all of the sudden I was Mary Sugarman wrote me an email and was like, "Do you even?" She was like, "Do you want to audition for this?" And um, for an ensemble part in School of Rock, and I was like, yeah, sure," but like I hadn't really been trying or
Hmm.
auditioning as an actor at all. At the time was working at I think I was working at Pace University. Well, I just finished 3 years there, but
Hmm.
I knew I loved to perform. I just didn't know how to get through or how to break through into the business at all. So,
Hmm.
but for most of my time, I was going where the wind blows. So if someone said, "Hey, you want to write this? Hey, you want to play piano? Hey, you play violin for this?" And then after a while, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be called just to play violin. So then I was like, if you're gonna have me play violin on your concert, I also need a song.
Uh-huh.
Or hey, if you want me to music direct this, I also need to sing on it. Or
Hmm.
so I started to do that kind of stuff because I didn't want to be pigeonholed too much because I definitely felt what that was. So I learned that I didn't want to be pigeonholed as a music director or a violinist or a pianist.
Hmm.
I wanted to be pigeonholed, if anything, as a singer, actor, composer, that
Hmm.
kind of stuff.
Where the world will
Teacher.
be consciously pigeonholing you not as a performer, because there's fewer amazing violin slash music directors than there are amazing actors. So they're going to go, oh, let's put you in that box if they have the option to.
Yes, yes, because it's very rare in the theater. It's very rare that you find a violinist that's like, I'm going to move to New York to play for cabarets for other people. It's not
Right.
the
Yeah.
journey. So, but that it's been great for me to do all those things because what I love about my New York career is that I stuck around long enough for enough people to know the things that I do and to know that
Hmm.
I'm a comedian and also know that I'm a singer and a pianist and a writer and a violinist, and to know all those things, and I'm legitimate at them and not just toying around. Sometimes I get really annoyed by people being like, "I'm a multi hyphenate because I am a coffee maker and an actor, and I also am a producer of my own um, laundry." Like, I just am a little bit like, "Okay, Queens, like, are you really? Are you
Yeah.
really?" Like those are all the same. And I don't care.
This is a
People can
true
do whatever they
multi-hyphen. I
want.
mean, you're not just bragging. This is really, you have some, you could be almost multiple of these things as an entire career. That you could just be a music director and do
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
stuff. You could just be
Yeah.
a composer, just be a writer.
And it's weird, just like, just I'm a very humble person, so for me to be able to be like, yes, Charlie, you're right, behind door number one is Joel version this, and it's true. I could do all those things. I'm not happy doing all of doing one at a time. I think I need to scoot and skedaddle from each from one to the next. But yes, I do take pride in my ability to do that. I've worked hard to be
And
good
I
at all
do
those
always
things.
wonder, like, do you, are you almost like fearful of success in the way of like, it's our light, not our darkness, that scares us in sort of one of those hats? Like the example I would give is like that Carolander that you and Julia do is so
Yes.
effing good. Like that could be your career. Like you must have got sense that like after the season one, you're like, oh, if I just did this all day, like I could be a professional skit writing. It's like you could be the Lonely Island Boys or whatever. That, like, there feels like there's something there that works, but you seem like you've consciously been like, but that's only for one season, and then I'm doing other things too. I'm not just going to do that. Is that true?
Yeah, I think fear of success is a huge thing. I think also I lack the chutzpah and the real knowledge of how to advocate for myself in a
Mm-hmm.
larger way. I think I am waiting for that perfect representation or that agent who knows what I do and loves what I do so much
Uh-huh.
that they can field things through me and I can be like, okay, not that project, this project, not that one, this one. Because it's really hard for me to be like, hey world, don't you love me? Otherwise, if that were the case, I would be posting way more things on Instagram of just myself. But it was
Mm-hmm.
easier for me to do that with Julia because she's brilliant and I respect her so much and love her so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier for me to put out things into the world when I'm not the only one being looked
Right.
at.
You're lifting each
So,
other up. Yeah.
right. And we're trying to make something happen with that behind the scenes. But, that
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to do unless you have a ton of money. And
Yes.
I think people think that we got paid to do that. We didn't. We produced that ourselves just to
Uh-huh.
make a big Christmas card for everybody. And we had a
Yep.
blast doing it. And it's been great for both of our careers
Yep.
in the long run.
That's
But
not laundry production. That's real production, you're saying.
yes, exactly. But I've thought about that a little bit too, because then I think to myself, well, I also don't want to be known as just the funny guy.
Right.
I still have a side of myself that's like, I want to be, I want to be Sarah Bareilles at the piano. I want to be,
Yep.
I want to have that sort of reverence to my performance as well. But so I think a part of me is a little afraid of being pigeonholed again for something, which is why I hold
Uh-huh.
myself back. And I'm also afraid of appearing arrogant. And sometimes I think I judge people who really put themselves out there too much because I think I'm envious of it. And so I've got a little resistance to that. It's
Uh-huh.
much easier if someone's like, hello, everyone meet Joel. Isn't he great?
Yes.
Because then I didn't do it. They did. But if
Yep.
I come out and I'm like, hey, everybody, meet me, then I just like sort of want to throw up into my lap.
It does feel like
But
there's a real inefficiency of those kind of people who, like, I think you're someone who everybody who knows you goes, Joel is so damn talented. He's going to be a star. Where he's just amazing. I don't know what to do with him, but he's going to be a star. He's going to be amazing. Like, there's a lot of those people who go, you're super talented. You've been discovered. People know who you are. It's not like you're, just in a piano bar and no one's ever heard of you. But then whatever that next step of like, what does that look like? How does that iterate to be like, now he's a star on YouTube? He's a star. Like, we don't
I
kind of know what
know.
that means, but you're waiting for someone to swoop in and make some money off of you, given your talent.
Well, that's really kind of you to say, actually, and it helps sort of synthesize some ideas. It means a lot to me to hear you say that, especially after 2 years of literally being alone and having a really, really difficult time. I mean,
It,
the kind of time where I was erased not only from the world but from myself, and I lost
mhm.
all joy and hope in things, and I lost the pleasure in doing what I thought I loved to do. So not only hearing that, but also being able to hear that from a place of recovery and healing is like
Uh-huh.
just really, really powerful. So thanks for
And
saying that.
I'll
As
just
far
say
as
that's
like,
not me saying that. That's like everybody says that. Like if you haven't heard that, really heard that, it's like that is like the person who walks by and go, he's so handsome. It's like it's not that one person thinks that. Like everybody thinks that he's so
right.
talented and
And I
handsome
am
too. But
handsome too. I am handsome
yeah,
too.
there's no doubt. For those not watching a video, he's sort of like he's kind of a Dustin Hoffman mixed with
Well,
Brad
yeah, right
Pitt.
now I'm giving you like a sheriff, like Kill Bill vibe. I don't know what I'm giving you. But, and that's really interesting. I also had a lot of grappling with to do in therapy about that, because the word talented has been used a lot around me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I'm not saying like, oh, wah wah wah, but it has made me it has been a little bit difficult for me to ex- to exist without that being available to
Uh-huh.
so
Who are you without your talents being evident all the time?
yes, like, am I
Yeah.
still lovable if I just have lungs and that's it? Am I still
Mm-hmm.
worthy of love and belonging and friendship and
Mm-hmm.
acceptance? And if I couldn't sing a note, if I couldn't play a thing, if I were boring, if I were not funny, if I were, you know what I mean? Like, whatever the iguana on the rock version of myself is, just the like reptilian
Mm-hmm.
cellular life force, is that person worthy? And so I've actually had to have a lot of work to do around that, because I feel like so many of the things I do are appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go, well, am I appreciated? Would you be friends with me if I didn't do these things that you maybe want to associate yourself with? So
Mm-hmm.
that's been a whole journey too. But as far as the thing, yeah, I have a lot of shame too. I'm like 37. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 37 and I don't have this many credits, or I haven't done this thing, or I haven't been on TV yet, except for that game
Mm-hmm.
show. Like, I have all these messages. I'm like, I can't suddenly decide to be like a musical artist at 40. Like, who's going to take me seriously? I should have done that in
Mm-hmm.
my 20s. Like, if I'm not Billie Eilish, I'm nobody. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic has hopefully freed a lot of people from those shackles. I'm really hoping I can really incorporate some of the freedom into my own life, because I really do want to write and perform and be on stage and be myself, and not worry that maybe I got here when I did, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd have a bald spot touring my one man show, but here we are. Um, I so desperately want to step into that way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as I don't know, I guess I'm waiting for somebody. Honestly, I'm waiting for somebody to take charge, and I'm waiting for someone to believe in me. And I honestly, unfortunately, think that person is me.
Well, if
Like,
you're
I
out
think I'm
there
gonna have to do
listening,
it.
fancy talent agents, get in there, get while the good is hot. I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned comedy a couple times, and it's something I wrote down. We just, our last week's guest was Annalie Ashford, who's also a great
Oh,
comedian. We were talking a little about like what makes her so funny, and she kind of gave a little treatise on what she thinks comedy is. So I thought I would give you the same question, because I think to me you are someone who both seems like effortlessly funny in like who you are and your comedic instincts and your big choices and those things, but also like so whip smart in terms of funny as a writer and an improviser. And those two things don't necessarily seem like they naturally, like many people
mm.
have both of those two things. So I'd love to kind of hear about how did you cultivate that skill, and moving forward, how do you use sort of the fun actor self of yours and the fun writer self of yours to kind of make comedy gold?
Oh, that's really thoughtful. That's a great question. Uh Definitely humor started as a defense mechanism, being bullied in school. Like, I definitely knew how to make
Mm-hmm.
the straight guys laugh, because I would just say really gross stuff, and really like gross, just like body stuff, and I would take it way further than they would. So I would get their
Mm-hmm.
respect. So I would sort of like started with that kind of humor, but also I started to just, my antennas were always up. My antennae were out.
Yes, plural
Always,
already with antennae.
always checking to see the temperature of the room and the emotions of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Who's feeling what? Who's here? Who likes me? Who's looking at me? Who's laughing? Who's not? Because I was just hypersensitive to that. Because I think when you grow up gay, there's also like just a lot of other superpowers that you just have. You know that you're other, so you just sort of you just are on high alert. On top of that, my brain works pretty fast, and I love metaphors. I love coming up with metaphors all the time. Um, and so my brain is always like an old fashioned switchboard, like telephone, like, yeah, holding your call, please. It's like one of those ladies, and she's always putting things together in my mind. So I think that um, my my wit comes from that kind of thing. Like, I'll hear a word, and my brain will be like, this word rhymes with this word, and you have 3 seconds to make this joke in the room, or it will pass. And that's what's really fun for me in rehearsal right now, actually, because I lost my sense of humor last year. I really did, and I was praying for it to return. In rehearsal, it's a very serious show that we're doing, and I will find myself in little moments like popping in jokes that just release the tension in the room. And so it's a little bit of a performance, but it's also like I think it's really appreciated. But I will have this sort of like experience where there'll be a moment, someone will say something, I will have an immediate thought that's a connection that's like, this is like this thing, this is like this thing. You have 3 jokes to say, you have 2 seconds to do it. Which one are you going to pick? I blurt it out, the room laughs, we move on. So it's a little bit, I have some of those decisions that just come up. And sometimes I go, not worth it, not funny enough. And sometimes I'll say the joke to like 2 people and it won't land. I'll be like, that was good. That was a good try. But yeah, exactly. But I do find myself all of a sudden like getting a lot of calls. I feel sort of like a medium where I'm like, oh my God, there's so many ghosts here. Like all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of jokes that just fly out. It's just it's the way I see the world a little bit. Um, I just love weird connections and taking things too far and I love the 17th choice down the list, not the first or second. Um, yeah, and my mom's a creative writer, and I think I always loved making my dad laugh, so that's something I really enjoyed doing. And my sister is really funny too. And I think it was like a little bit of shocking. I like to shock people, and surprise people. But yeah, I don't know where it comes from. Sometimes I think it just is. Maybe it's the ADHD thing that I think I have, where just my brain is like just throwing stuff together, and I have a choice in that moment, sort of just like here's a joke. You want one? It's like I'm in a writer's room and I just go from there. But improvising I found has really been really, really fun, especially with
Well,
Julia.
and
We have a
you have a
blast.
prodigious intelligence too. I feel like that also like comes out quickly and like even just in your pace and the fact that you're like, I can do the 17th joke because I've actually thought that through and I've already played out the scenario and I'm jumping right to that place, is really impressive. And what you were doing in class as you were sort of testing out and feeling, "Oh, is this working? How am I reading this room? How's it reacting?" That is acting. When you wonder about like what is that skill set of that goes in terms of you as a dramatic actor, that's what it is, right? It's listening and responding. So even though you may have used it to comedic effect as a kid, you also were training as a dramatic actor.
You're right. That's interesting, which makes me feel like I've been acting my whole life. But
Ain't that it's all?
it
But
is.
what am I when I become the iguana and I stop acting?
And oddly, what I'm most happy, I am performing a version of myself, which is myself.
Hmm.
So that's when I'm most happy. It's like I have created this person and it is me.
Yes.
It is not a false me. Now, there is a sleepy version of me that just sits on the couch and watches Housewives
Hmm.
and does not want you to FaceTime. I only want to text you. There's that person. And
Yeah.
then there's the person who's a little bit snippy and da 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 da. But the person that I am on stage is generous, is open,
Yes.
is full-hearted, is funny, is lively. And that is a core version of myself. So I think that like I've crafted that person,
For sure.
but not it's not false. It's just a centered version of myself.
Absolutely.
So I like that. I want to spend more time in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a couple more questions, but we have to make sure we get to this game show winning because that's when we're going to
Oh
play
my
a
gosh.
little game show ourselves. So tell me about this crazy experience. So have you always want to go on? This is Pyramid. Have you always want to go on that show? Do you just love game shows in general? How did that happen? How did that come about for you?
A friend of mine was on it and she won.
Oh.
And then she won a trip. She won a trip to Turks and
Mm,
Caicos and she invited some of her friends, and I was one of those friends. And we spent a week at a villa in Turks and Caicos
mm.
with a private pool and private beach. And it was the I will never be on a vacation. No, that's when I'm on a vacation like that again, I will be paying for it with my royalties.
Hmm.
It was amazing. And she was like, you should try out for the show. And so I basically just um uh I sent in an application, I sent in a tape, and then Sasha put in a good word for me for um with casting. And I went through a ton of video auditions.
Again, this is more than just like I'm gay. Put me on Pyramid. That's not what you did.
I know, you're right.
It's
You're right.
difficult.
I have not had it easy in my
Mm-mm,
life,
mm-mm.
Charlie. But I got on the phone with I got on like a FaceTime with the casting agent, and she was like, "Okay, let's play a round of the game." And I'd never heard of the game. I'd never seen the game, and I played a terrible round. I didn't even know what I was doing. She was like, "I can tell you're fun, but I need you to hang up, Google a bunch of episodes,
Watch
learn how
the
to
damn
play it,
show.
and then call me back in an hour." And so over the span of 2 months, I just played the game over and over
Uh-huh.
and over again with them, over again. and because they really want to vet you, they want you to actually be good at it.
Which you were.
So
You
they
were very
vet you,
good.
vet you, and then finally, I think in like May, they were like, "We're gonna book you on the show," and the show is oh gosh, I don't know if it was in June or maybe it was June. Uh, and I was in School of Rock at the time, so I had to get a day off to do it. And I had been really practicing at that point, so I was ready. I was really practicing. I was ready. And then I went there the day of, and I had no idea who I was going to be paired with, what celebrities. And they just threw us all in a room, and we waited. And they chose my outfit for me out of things I brought, and then all of a sudden, we're just sitting there. I had some makeup and hair. We're just sitting there waiting. They go, "Okay, Joel and Giovanni, you are first." And this was like at noon, and we got there at 9. And some of them were there till like 10, which I was like glad I didn't have to do that. I was first. I was like, "Oh crap!" So they go back and they're putting me in a mic, and I was like, "Well, wait, where are we going?" And they're like, "Well, we're gonna put you in a mic and we're gonna do the show." And I was like, "Well, who are my people?" And they go, "Oh, you didn't? No one told you?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "You have Leslie Jones and Julie Bowen."
So good.
For Modern Family. And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, and then they just shove you out into a freezing game show floor, right? Freezing, because comedy is cold. And we just got started, and it just happened so fast. And the funny thing is I was calm. I was cool as a cue.
Yes, I've watched this
I
episode
was
now,
like,
Joel. In preparation for this, I
I was
watched
like,
you. You looked like you were like meditating. I was like, is he on something? Like you're going through it like, next question, go, next, got it.
you would find yourself in the same situation, I
I'm
think,
sure.
because what's so interesting is it is eye of a hurricane, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, there's a crowd there, there's cameras on you, there's a celebrity you have not met.
Yep.
There is Michael Strahan,
Time to
there's a
lock in.
beeping,
Here we
there's
go.
music.
Uh-huh.
Your body just sort of knows, like, make it happen. And I was really calm. I was having fun
Until you won. And then when you won, the release is like, oh my God.
Yes,
Like you're
but
shaking and running around.
But Charlie, remember, when you win, you have an obligation to show the audience and everybody an exciting win.
Yes.
Because I've seen the show where they were like, "Really? Oh." So I knew that three things happened. I said the thing. She said Pitts. It went ding. I go, "Oh my God, I did it." And then I immediately thought, perform for them.
Got to please them. Got to show them how great it is.
So I was like, do it. Yeah, well, yeah, because I was also really excited, but I was also like, show the world. And so I like, did that kind of thing and picked her up.
So funny.
It was wild. It was wild. And all that money's gone.
Oh, I assume so. It went away to taxes mostly.
I
right?
won $50,000, which turned into 25. And then after, things, it just went away. But it was glorious. And I did not get a trip, but I did get the money.
What we're going to try to do now, Joel, is recreate some of that true excitement. And then I'm going to bring you back. This is a specially made game for you. We're replaying your winner's circle clues. Okay. We're going to take you back to how you won this $50,000, which is now gone. And this is the same categories that made up your winning pyramid, but I'm going to give you terrible clues to see if I can get you there.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I think I forgot them. Okay.
Joel, are you ready to play this game? I'm going to give you, of course, you know how it works. I'm going to give you potentially 3 items in a list, all of which are going to name the pyramid that you created in your winner's circle to win $50,000. These will not be easy. These will be very difficult clues to get you there.
I'm scared. Okay.
Are you ready to play?
Is there a timer?
3 minutes on the clock, maybe.
3 minutes. We love
Got
3
it.
minutes.
Maybe.
Thank you, 3.
60
Thank you,
would be
3.
tough with this. All right. Are we ready? Here we go. Okay, listeners, this is me talking to you from the future. These are going to be incredibly hard questions, even if you know the categories. So we thought we'd let you know what the categories are that Joel got right in 2018 when he won the $100,000 pyramid. These are the 6 categories that you're going to guess as you play along. They are what a cockroach might say, things you sharpen, types of greetings, things that tell time, things that have pits, and islands. So those are the 6 categories I'm going to describe to Joel so that you can play along, see if you can, with that information, get some of these answers right yourself. Enjoy. The first category, cook, kitchen, temptation.
Things you things that are
Cook.
things that are hot,
Kitchen.
things that things you
Temptation.
stand in, things you move in. I can't remember what she said. Temptation, things you feel, things you buy wedding gifts for. sharp objects.
This
what
is
was
so
the first
bad.
one?
Okay, that was islands. We were
this
going
is
for
hard.
islands. You're already 0 for 1 on your category.
Cook
Island.
Island.
Season 13 of Survivor. It's fine. This is very difficult. I'm going to really make this tough. Okay, you ready?
You're right.
Category number 2.
Oh gosh, Temptation Island. I hate you for that. Keep going.
An orchestra.
Things that have strings.
Sarlacc.
Things you pull. Sarlacc? What's Sarlacc? Things you eat?
Brad
no, you don't eat
and
an orchestra.
Angelina.
Things that break up. Things that have too many children. Things that are confused. Things with too much plastic surgery.
Sarlacc.
Large groups of people. Things
Brad
with big families.
and Angelina.
Things with lots of people involved.
The answer was things that have pits.
Things that have pits. Orchestras, of course. Well, you went out of order. That's not the order.
Of course, I can't repeat the order for you. That's too easy. Okay, here we go.
No.
Category 3.
Now I know, because now I would have guessed pits had I known. Okay, go.
I'm going to live forever.
Lyrics, fame, things about fame.
I hate light.
I hate dark things in the dark.
Don't tread on me, bro.
Tread on me, bro. Things said by men.
I'm
male
gonna live
workers.
forever. I hate the light.
Why do I just think? I hate the. Why am I thinking of fame?
Don't
fame.
tread on me.
I want to live
bro.
forever. Don't tread on me, bro. Things men say. Things boys.
I made this way too hard. I was sure you were going to remember all 6 of the categories, so that I thought this was easier.
I don't remember.
This is what a cockroach might say. What a cockroach might say.
Oh, a cockroach would say, "Don't tread on me, bro."
I mean, I don't know. Don't step on me.
That's good. No, this is actually, it's funny. I forgot about cockroach. But the second you say it, I remember it.
We might go 0 for 6 now.
But now you know how bad I would.
Here we go.
Okay.
Number 4. I think you can believe this. Okay. Rings.
Things that are round and circly.
Annoyed managers.
Things that are pointy and
wrinkles.
Oh, things that
rings on a tree.
Things that are old. Things that tell age. Things that are agey.
I'll give you things that tell time. Things that tell time was that clue.
Oh, you're right.
Things that are agey.
Ew, what was the manager?
Annoyed managers.
These actually are excellent clues, and they're also terrible clues.
Well, if you knew, if you remembered your damn categories, it'd do better. Okay, you've 2 left.
Yeah.
Here we go,
Joel.
Joel.
It's been years. It's been 4 years.
I watched it this afternoon, so for me, it's not that hard. Okay, here we go. You have 2 left. I believe you can get 1 exactly. We've gotten 1 now, but that was I gave you a little.
I think I can too.
Okay. Your mind.
Things you sharpen.
Oh my God, you were ready to go. You were ready to go.
I was, because that was one I do remember. But give me other clues.
It was your mind, your vision, and up. Things you sharpen.
Sharpen up?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, 1 left. 1 left to go 50-50 and get some money at least. Seasons.
I don't remember what this one is.
Seasons.
Things that change.
Take me to your leader. Waza.
Things. Oh, interesting.
Seasons.
Things you experience.
Take me to your leader. Waza.
That's what an alien says. Things that. Oh shoot. Seasons. Things that. 4 seasons. Things that. So like. What is that? Things that someone says. Things that someone says. Wait. It's things that a person says. No, it's not. Is it things that a thing says? It's things that a thing says.
Types of greetings. It was types of greetings.
Oh.
Joel.
What was the first seasons? Oh, of course. Actually, you did a really good job. Here's the thing. You did a really good job in like an afternoon of coming up with some terrible but excellent clues.
Thank you, Joe.
Wow.
I was really proud of them, and I really thought this was going to go. I just was sure it was imprinted on your mind, because if it were me, I would have watched myself on TV so many times that I'd have it memorized.
I did 2 years ago. But here's the thing. The second you say the category, I go, of course, I remember that.
Come on, Brad and Angelina, things that have pits. I thought that was so good.
Well, I was waiting for pits to be last. I thought you were going to do it in order, but now it makes sense you didn't do it in order.
No,
so,
it's too easy.
Well, anyway, I was very good at the game at one point, and I could probably do it again, but
Go
not
watch it. It's on
that was not a
Hulu
good
now
example.
if you want. Anyone who has Hulu, season 3, episode 1, you'll watch Joel just be fantastic on the show. You teased me with social media, and that's really becoming a theme I'm asking more and more of our guests because I'm just fascinated by it in 2022 as I kind of dip my toes into it 10 years after the rest of the world
Yeah.
began their
Yeah.
relationship with it. What is your current relationship with it? Obviously, you've produced content for it, with the calendar, and I know you are someone who's on it. How do you use it kind of in your personal and professional life?
So, um, the it's tricky. I was using it a lot back in 2017 when I was in School of Rock, when I first got
Mm-hmm.
that show. I also created an extra account where I was making these a cappella videos I made called Joel Capellas, and I was creating that content. But then what happened was I started finding that people were like expecting more and more, and then it was less fun because I was like, oh shoot, I have to produce it and I have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just sort of flopped off. I just sort of stopped doing that. And then when Julia and I wanted to do something for Christmas, we were actually just going to film it in her living room. And then at the last minute, she was like, well, I have a friend with a really fancy studio. We could go there. And I was like, Julia, we haven't really created anything. We'd be improvising. And she's like, yeah, that'd be fun. And I was like, improvising with like professional equipment? Like, what if it, but she knew what she was doing. So we got there and that's why it looked so good.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond Calendar, which is sort of like a general, like almost TV series for free for anybody who wants it for every day of December.
Mm-hmm.
I've been finding that
At Advent Calendar on Instagram.
yes, I've been finding my involvement in Instagram has significantly decreased
Hmm.
since the beginning of the pandemic. Mostly because I find it a little bit of a tricky place to be. I feel like it leaves you susceptible to negativity with whatever you're contributing. It leaves you uh, susceptible to negativity coming at you from other sources. I've tried to curate
Mm-hmm.
mine so it's a lot of like self-help and quotes and things that bring me joy and it's a real difficult space for actors because it's a very competitive place where everybody puts their good goings on. Here's me at a
Mm-hmm.
movie premiere. Here's a photo dump of me at a movie premiere, or here's my first day
Look,
of
I still
school.
fit into my costume from 2 years
Yes,
ago. Yeah,
so excited for my
we
first
get
day
it.
of school and national tour of blank. And these are all
Mm-hmm.
things we should be celebrating for each other, but it's really not a good, healthy place for someone who's either not working or struggling to work.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like responsible of me to put that stuff out there
Mm-hmm.
because I know how people would feel seeing that. So I've drawn way back. Like I post something on my main feed, like maybe like I think like once every 5 months, but I'm on there watching stories and stuff. And listen, I know that the way to get famous quick is to just put all your money into TikTok and Instagram and just like put stuff out there. If you're good, people will watch it eventually. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not the kind of career I want. And I know that that is probably maybe foolish in some ways, but also for other people. But I don't want to be a content house. I like to make something and then share it. I don't want to make little things every single day or money multiple things every time a day. Um, and I want to be off my phone more and more because the more I get into it, the more I see and find ways to believe that everyone is doing better than me. And it's just not a good thing for me. In fact, I'm actually hearing younger people pulling away from it too, like early 20s, like saying, I grew up with this and I'm just like not into it. So I'm really curious
They
to see
know what
what
it is more than we do.
happens. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
hearing, yeah, they've been able to see like, yeah, it's not all it's cracked up to be um, in a
Except
way.
to listen to podcasts. Do continue listening to podcasts, young people. Come on.
Oh, well, podcasts are very different. Podcast is not social media to me.
For sure. Totally
I
agree.
don't think
But if it's on the
podcast
phone,
is music.
maybe.
Yeah, it's on the phone. Phone is
Right.
different.
Do it while
When
you
you
work
listen
out.
when you
That's
listen
great.
to a podcast, you're learning and you're deepening your knowledge of yourself and of the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
When you are on Instagram, you are engaging in uh just a compare and despair game.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
So
you
true.
curate your content to be podcast like in your sort of like education of self, which I'm trying to do.
All right. My
And
actual last question for you, Joel,
okay,
and then I
I
will
love
let
you.
you go, is just if you could give a piece of advice to young Joel, he's coming up today into the industry, what would it be?
That's really hard.
That's what you'd say to young Joel?
Oh gosh, what I would say to young Joel is, um, I would say it is okay, not only okay, but imperative that you feel things deeply and allow people to see you feeling them, and that you trust people, even if your heart breaks, that you trust again and again. Because if you keep you have to be seen. You cannot keep performing dance monkey dance. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important that you find people that you can feel helpless around, helpless and hopeless around, because that's what I discovered in this pandemic. I was leaning on my friends in a way that I had never in my life, and they saved me. And if I could tell myself earlier, it's okay, you're safe, you're loved, you're accepted, go ahead and relax. Just relax. Be it, dare to be unremarkable, dare to be beige, just exist and be loved for who you are, and don't feel like you need to impress anybody, and practice that. Don't just say it to yourself. Practice it. Step into discomfort, step into awkwardness, step into the kindness and compassion, all the Brene Brown stuff. But just uh, create self-love from that place, and not from the place of your skills are what validates you. I think that's one piece of advice. And then also just like to really care for your mental health, and not
Mm-hmm.
have shame in caring for your mental health, because
Well, and a
um
perfect pitch for subsection B on our next podcast, all
yeah.
about Joel's mental health. For now, you can check out Joel. He posts once every 5 months at Joel Wagner. I would follow at Advent Carolander. It's a fantastic follow. We'll see if he continues to do that. But even if you just go back and watch the old ones, it's amazing. And at Joel Capella. Joel, thank you so much for your time today. It was such a pleasure getting to chat with you.
Charlie, you are an extraordinary person. You always have been. And thank you for holding space for me today and reaching out to me. And it's really good to see your face. I'm so happy for you. And I hope that you're feeling like just as good as we all, know you to. Well, I hope you're feeling the love, because you're definitely getting it.
I love you, man. That's
All right.
really, I love you.
All right.
All right. Oh man, I hope you enjoyed hearing Joel as much as I enjoyed talking to him. He's always so amazing to chat with. He's such a combination of warmth and wisdom, of humor and intelligence and vulnerability and depth. And Megan is making fun of me for all these adjectives, but it's how I feel. Megan, it's how I feel. We did a pretty long deep dive into a few different things here. So I really just want to pick up and kind of examine a little gem that Joel dropped, which we didn't touch on much, which is that idea of being your own advocate in the business. I actually did touch a bit on this in one of our college episodes, and kind of in how it relates to getting into college, specifically auditions, like having that quiet confidence to believe it can be you, what it is to walk into a room and say, yes, me, as opposed to saying, I don't know if maybe if you want to, right? But this is kind of that same gem all grown up as we talk about it in the business, as sort of people are pursuing a career. Joel was joking about how he's kind of waiting for someone to tell him he's an actor, or in a different context, he was saying, I'm kind of waiting for someone to see all the extraordinary things that he can do and decide what to do with them or how to sell them, right? And you heard him quietly say, if you caught it in the episode, he says, but I know it actually has to be me. He like kind of whispered it under his breath. And I just want to co-sign that little angel on Joel's shoulder. Yes, it does have to be you, because it is so true in most cases, right? There always are those exception cases where there's like this incredible talent manager or agent who sees you in some back end of a bar and goes, you're such an extraordinary talent doing that karaoke. I'm going to turn you into a whatever, right? That's like how it happens in the movies. And of course, could it happen in real life? Yes, it could, right? But most people are not getting that kind of step by step, let me help and sell you, and you just get to be the artist path to success. Much more often, what people will say is that after they're super successful, after they're already well known and people are breaking down their door to help them come up with these brilliant ideas on how to sell themselves or how to brand themselves or to take their career to the next level. And people are always like, well, where was this when I couldn't get a damn audition? Yeah, these are great ideas. I wish someone was helping me do this when I couldn't get in for that role, or I couldn't even, be seen by that casting director. But first, most actors have to go through that process of deep self-discovery in terms of what they bring to the world. What is that unique thing that I'm offering that nobody else, or maybe few others are? What can I do better than anyone else? What do I know about deeply and truly that I can put out into the world? And then once you've done that artistic introspection, which Joel clearly has done and has a real firm grasp on his own unique and incredible artistry, there's often that next step of what is being that true advocate for yourself. That's what Joel was sort of saying he's waiting on, right? You may have heard the idea that actors have to be the CEO of their own company, which is true. And for those who are business heads, the CEO is responsible for all that artistic vision or all the kind of strategy of what the company's going to do. But also sometimes, especially in 2022, an actor might have to be the CMO and the COOs and all the other O's that a company might need, right? There might be that element of self-production, as we saw Joel do beautifully with his Carolander, before that thing gets picked up by Apple TV Plus or whoever ends up doing it. I'm telling you it's going to happen. But until that happens, you might have to do some self-producing, or that element of kind of marketing that is kind of the pounding the pavement equivalent and maybe makes us feel a little gross as actors. I think a lot of actors feel really uncomfortable with self-promotion. And that's not to say that we all have to be incredible networkers or whatever, that gross image we get of people who kind of use other people around them to climb the ladder in a blatant, obvious way. But I do love that Joel said he was both grossed out and jealous of that skill and the kind of shamelessness that takes. And I think a lot of people, especially a lot of artists, feel that way, myself included. I'll include myself in that category. So we might have to find that deep part of ourselves that says, yeah, I'm saying it's me. I'm the show you should produce out of the 1,000 other great shows. I'm that actor that you really have to meet, that you should cast over these 100 of other amazing actors. I'm the director who's right to helm your next show. There's a real vulnerability to that. And I think we don't always see it as vulnerability. I think we sometimes think of that as a cockiness or, oh God, that person just loves to put themselves out there. But it is a vulnerability. Often that I think it is fear that holds us back from doing that. But if we can make that scary leap, I think we have that much more chance to actually, make whatever that dream is come true that we have. Which, of course, leads me to my scary leap of saying, I am the podcast that you should listen to first thing in the morning. Give it a download. And if you want to be sure not to miss any episodes, we'll give us a little tap on that subscribe button. You can rate and review us with 5 stars if you think I make the games too hard, and an ironic 5 stars if you think I should make them harder. You can also reach out to us with questions for the pod at mailbag@mappingthecollegeaudition.com, or reach out to me and Meghan directly and give us a follow. I'm at Charmer7, very close to a big round number on those Instagram followers. So give me like 6 more followers. We can do it. Or you also could follow at Meghan Marie 2014. If you're interested in working with MTCA for help with your individual prep for your college audition journey, please check us out at mtcollegeauditions.com. You can also check us out at Musical Theater College Auditions, at TweetMTCA. We're also on YouTube. We're on TikTok, the whole darn thing. To my young artists out there mapping their journeys, any path to a successful college degree can work, whether it's a BFA, a BA, a BM, or a participation trophy. We'll see you next week.